Meghan Markle has been accused of faking several interviews for her Axed Archetypes podcast. Industry sources have claimed that the Duchess had staff members on the show conduct interviews with her guests before audio of her voice was edited in to the final episodes. The allegations came just days after it was revealed that the Sussex's $20 million deal with Spotify was finishing by mutual agreement. Yeah. Meghan's 12-episode podcast featured a series of high-profile guests in a one-season run, which included Mariah Carey and Serena Williams. It's not the first time the question has been raised about her input into the interview process for other people who appeared on Archetypes. Charlie Rae, former royal editor over there at The Sun, often helps us out with these kind of stories. What the hell's going on here, Charlie? I mean, I've heard of cutting back on your workload, but not turning up for your own interviews. That's a whole other territory to me.
It is a complete whole other territory. I mean, this is staggering. It's coming from inside Spotify. So now we know the reason, well, one of the reasons why it was axed, apart from the fact that the Archetypes podcasts were boring. Just boring. The problem is with Meghan Markle, her reputation is now so far down the toilet that if you were to suggest that she may have been involved in the assassination of John F. Kennedy, you would have to look at it properly just in case. For her now to do this trick where other people, her staff, were actually carrying out the interviews, and then she would insert the questions to some of the for the interviews to make it look as if, you know what it's like on TV, there's cutaways, so you can cut away to Meghan, and then cut away to the answer and everything else. So it's ridiculous to think that this woman was being paid £18 million for this total load of rubbish. And I'm not surprised that Spotify are now saying they may not even pay out the £18 million because she hasn't done the work. The Spotify, the royal couple, the same as the royal couple, did not meet the productivity benchmark, which means they were lazy. And let's not forget that a very senior executive at Spotify has described them, and I'm not going to use the adjective that he used, but the one word he did use is grifters. Yeah. And that's an Americanism for con men. And I'm afraid this reputation that they've now got, it's a one-trick pony of attacking the royal family constantly. And even Netflix, there's now a possibility that Netflix is going to dump them from their £80 million deal. Because the stuff that they've done, they did the 6-part documentary about moaning about the royal family and everything else. And, it was really successful because lots of people looked at it. But when you analysed it, it was rubbish. And Netflix have not yet forgiven them for going to the Oprah Winfrey show initially with that devastating interview that they gave.
It's an extraordinary story, this, isn't it? I mean, in terms of the podcast thing, I can understand it. Working in my trade, I know that every now and again you'll do an interview with somebody. If it's a pre-recorded interview, they'll say, oh, that bit didn't quite pick up. Can you redo that line again or something? And you might have to do that, even though the other person has gone home by that stage, and you redo the line and they cut it all into the edit and it looks nice. But that's not what's being suggested here. They're actually suggesting that other members of staff did some of the interviews.
Yeah, Meghan wasn't actually in the room when the interview was conducted. And there's one lady, a journalist in New York called Alison Yarrow. Now, she did a podcast interview supposedly with Meghan, but it turned out to be with a senior staff member about, it was called the To Be or Not To Be, and it was the description of the word bitch, where it came from and how it came and everything else. But Meghan didn't have any input into that, although, as I understand it, she was the one who was asking the question. And Alison has said she never even met Meghan on this.
Wow. I mean, that's a whole other territory of, there's disingenuous would be a polite way to put it. Duping would be, more moderate. And then, the executive you just quoted probably had it quite right with the word that we can't say.
He is, and I think we in Britain are fed up with them already. America can have them, and I just come back from a 2-week cruise with a whole load of Americans and everything else, And when we brought up, or when the subject of Harry and Meghan were brought up, there wasn't one American who thought that they contributed anything to their country at all. They're all fed up with them.
There it is, Charlie. Thank you, Charlie Rae, former royal editor over there at The Sun, with us on that one. Years ago, when I first started in radio, and I think I probably came in at the tail end of this, they used to do... So, you know, there used to be a chart show that was simulcast across all kind of commercial music stations. And they would do an interview with somebody like Elton John. But Elton John would just supply, it was a load of answers, and then they would send the answers to every local station. And then whoever their kind of main kind of music jock was, would then edit in the questions, and it would look as if sound as if they've interviewed Elton John. And if those that edited it really well could make it sound incredible. I mean, if you just had question, answer, it would sound a bit rubbish. And I'm sure if you listen back to some of those, they sounded appalling. But those that were good at editing that kind of stuff could make it sound really good. So they edit it so that their voice came on the back, on top of the last bit of an answer, and they'll put some ums and ahs in there and things. And it sounded amazing. And now that was done because that was just it wasn't about duping anybody. It wasn't about laziness. It was just merely about commercial radio being able to get an in on the game. The BBC had all the big hitters. So the world of the commercial boys was, you know, and girls was a slightly different issue, of course, back then. So that was why they did it. It was about entertainment. Nobody was being duped. But this is something else. I mean, if you're literally not there to interview the person on your own interview, should have made 12 of them, for God's sake.